Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Apa khabar semua? Sehat? Alhamdulillah.
Sehat.
Hari ni make sure kalau tak ada sound cakap. I hope today okay. I think last week the problem was with my apa benda tu? Yang that sound. I use another one. Maybe that one that was all good. Okay, anything from last class? Somebody was raising the problem number 7 tu. Dah okay? Siapa nama? Afiq. Okay, question number 7 tu okay? If there is no question, you just look at the slope. Alright, look at the slope, look at the intercept. That will give you ideas. No solution ke ada solution. Okay, so if there is nothing, I will continue. Today we're going to finish up this chapter, I hope. We're going to do the last part, that is on 1.6, on application. There are only 2 applications that we want to look at. One is the break-even problem. The other is the market equilibrium. So only 2. Okay, hopefully we can finish the application by today. Now let's look at the break-even. Now break-even is an economic, and that is fairly simple. Break-even, everybody knows break-even. Now what is break-even? Break-even is when you do a business and what you earn just cover the cost. So that is break-even, right? So break-even means profit is 0. So let us define that. So break-even is simply a situation where your profit is equal to 0. Now, what is profit? So first we need to know the profit, and we denote by P. Now, capital P is for profit, P. It's a function of X, and it's equal to revenue, which is a function of X, minus the cost, function of X. When you say break-even, you say profit is equal to 0. So let me just denote the R. Okay, R is revenue, and C denote the cost. Everything is in the units of money unit. So money unit, we either use dollars or RM, or it can be rupiah, it can be yuan, any real, okay? So everything is in money units, the revenue, the cost, and the profit. So when you say break even, that means what? That means the profit is 0. So profit is 0. In terms of revenue and cost, we say we just earn, all right? We just earn to cover the cost, or our earning is just enough to cover cost. So that means what? That means when the profit is equal to 0, that means the revenue minus the cost is 0. So when revenue minus cost equal to 0, what you have is revenue equal to the cost. So that is why we say the income, okay, or the revenue just cover cost. So that is break even, okay, or profit equal to 0. So that is the idea, okay, the idea of break-even. Okay, any question? So that's break-even. Now, what is the revenue? What is the cost? So that is the thing that we need to do, because profit is defined as revenue minus the cost. Okay, so revenue minus the cost, that is your profit. So if your revenue minus cost equal to 0, we call it break-even. If your revenue minus cost is bigger than 0, that means what you earn, your income, is larger than the cost. What does it mean? It means we have what? We have positive profit. Or simply we call it in a common term, we just call it, that is profit. Okay, that is profit. And then if your revenue minus cost is less than 0, then what? Then you have a loss. Okay, or negative profit. So that is on the difference between revenue and cost. Okay, now we look at revenue. The revenue is a function of X. Of course, we know it's a function of X, but sometimes when you write, you don't write R of X, you just write R. Okay? Now, what is revenue? Revenue is how much you earn from the sale of the good or the service. Okay? So it's the income that you earn, okay, your earnings from what? From sale of the good, of a good or service. Now, how do you determine that revenue? You know, it's the income or the earning from sale. So how do you measure revenue? So to measure revenue from the sale, what you need is, of course, you need the price of the good, okay, call it P, and then you need the quantity, okay, quantity of the good that you sell, that will be X. So revenue is simply P times X. Okay, so revenue is P times X. Now, for now, okay, for this purpose, because we are looking at revenue, which is linear function, we will assume the price, all right, P as a constant. So that P is a constant. That means it's fixed. So the only variable would be P constant, and then the X here is variable. So the P is a constant. That means P can be a number, right? So example, the price can be equal to say 21.7. That means we sell the product at 21 ringgit 70 cents. So what is our revenue? Then revenue is equal to 21.7 multiplied by X. So you got 21.7X, 21.7X. So that is revenue. So that is a linear revenue. Okay, any question about that? Now, linear revenue, when you look at the situation of the market, we call the market is a competitive market. So we are looking at a competitive market, okay? The type of market which is under perfect competition. So perfect competition, or we could just simply call it competitive market. So competitive market is where the price is constant. Okay, apa bunyi itu gerubuk. Okay, price is a constant. So what we're looking at here is the competitive market. All right. So revenue is a very simple function. Okay, revenue is a very simple function. The revenue is just P times X. Now, from that revenue, we look at the slope of the revenue, because B is equal to 0. Okay, B is equal to 0. There is no y-intercept. In other words, the r-intercept is 0. Okay, r-intercept 0. So if you draw the graph, okay, r is a function of x. When you draw a graph, you put the x in the horizontal axis, revenue vertical axis. So you got px. So px, and p is a constant, right? P is a constant, is a price. So the price is a constant, and it is bigger than 0 or 0. So we don't look at anything less than 0 for the price, okay? So say the price equal to 21.7 just now. So what you got will be the revenue will be 21.7x. Is that right? Is this the right function? Okay, is that the right function for revenue? Cepat. When I saw it, I didn't remember, you know, when after I finished drawing it, and then I remember to ask the question, is that the right revenue function or is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Some people say yes, some people say no. Is it right? Is it right or is it wrong? It is not. It is not. It's not right. Okay, why? Because if I draw it like this, you see here, there is the intercept. B is bigger than 0. Okay, so this is not right. What is the correct revenue? If I want to draw the revenue, where is the intercept?
0.
The intercept. Ini is the intercept. So revenue should be like this. Okay, so that is the wrong one. So revenue, as we know, is just P times X. So the intercept is 0 because I just mentioned B is equal to 0. So that's revenue. And the price is positive. Normally the price is 0. How come you give up? Okay, I think we'll be more practical. P bigger than 0. That means if price is 0, you are giving the product free. All right. So I don't think anybody doing business is giving it free. Of course, you can give free for a few units, but not all. Okay. So make it bigger than 0. Okay. Now, what is the slope? All right. What is the slope of the revenue? So the slope M for revenue is P times X, and you go back to the general notation Y equal to MX. So what is the slope here? What is the slope? Anybody?
The P.
The P. So the slope is the P, all right, which is the price. So the price is the slope. Now, how do you measure price? Price is equal to what? Price is equal to M, and M is equal to delta Y over delta X. Now we are looking at Rx. So delta R over delta X. So the price, okay, the price, the unit is in RM per unit. Okay, so the revenue or the price, the unit is ringgit per unit or dollar per unit. That's unit of the price we know, all right? When you buy something, you know the price is 21.7. What does it mean? It means 21.7 for 1 unit. Okay, everybody understood. So you don't have to say the price per unit because that is understood by everyone in the market. All right, but the unit is RM per unit. So the price is the slope. All right, the price is the slope of the revenue function, and we call it marginal revenue. The slope of the margin of the revenue function, we call it marginal revenue. Marginal means small change. Okay, small change. So it's a change of revenue. So that is marginal revenue. Now that slope, if you look at the revenue again, we can divide by X. Okay, you divide by X, then you got the PX divided by X. Then you got also P. Now, when you divide a quantity by, a variable by another variable, now at a certain point, you have the value, okay? The value of that variable, and then you divide by another value of another variable. Then what do you call it? R over X. Delta R over delta X, or delta Y over delta X is the slope, all right, or the marginal. So when you divide simply the quantity by the quantity, it's not the change over the change, it's just quantity over the quantity. Okay, so what is it? Suppose your revenue is equal to 15,000, okay, and you sell 1,200 units of the good. So what is the ratio? What do you call that ratio?
Revenue per unit.
Revenue per unit. So revenue per unit is what? So that is revenue per unit. We call this average revenue. Okay, so we call it AR, average revenue. So anything that you divide, the quantity over quantity is average. Change over change is marginal. So normally in economics, we just name it as like that. Okay, so average revenue, your average CGPA, okay, your total GPA divided by the number of hours that you earn give you the average GPA. Okay, so the total divided by a total of another variable give you the average. Okay, so that is average revenue. Now average revenue is R over X. We know it's average per unit, average revenue per unit. That is equal to PX divided by X. So what is it equal to?
P lah.
Equal to P. Okay, it's again equal to P. So the price is very special here, or the slope. The price is equal to the marginal revenue. It's also equal to the average revenue. Okay, so average revenue is revenue per unit. Okay, average per unit. Marginal revenue is the change in the revenue per unit change in X. So again here, you know, in order for you to get the marginal, we go back to the delta Y over delta X. So that's why the interpretation of the delta Y over delta X is very important. I hope you still remember that. So what do you call it? We call it delta R over delta X is equal to what? Delta over delta X is equal to P. Okay, what does it mean? It means P, okay, is the what? P is the, since it's positive, the increase, or it can be decreased. Okay, decrease in what? Increase in revenue. For a what? For a unit increase in X in the good sold. If I sold one more unit, if I sell one more unit of the good, okay, the increase in revenue or the decrease in revenue, so in other words, the change in revenue lah, because it can be positive, can be negative. Tak boleh negative lah, cannot be negative because of what? Because that change is the price. So therefore now we take out the decrease, we take out the increase. Okay, the price is the positive value. So therefore just the increase. So P is the increase in revenue if we sell one more unit of the good. Okay, so that price is the marginal revenue. So if you go back to 21.7, what does it mean? It means if I sell one more unit of the good, the revenue will increase by how much? What is the increase by, or what is the increase in the revenue? The increase in revenue is equal to what? Is equal to 21.7, which is the slope, and that is the price. Okay. So we will, you know, you will encounter that interpretation again. So we go back to that example. Okay, this example, suppose I give you another example. Suppose the price equal to, I mean, delta R over delta X equal to say 15, right? And here, the revenue is in dollars or in RM, okay, in RM. The X, we just call it unit, okay? So how do you interpret the 15? That 15 is the price, and that 15, which is the price, is the increase in revenue, okay? So how do you describe it? So we go back like this, delta y over delta x. So you just extend it, okay? Just extend it to the revenue. Okay, paham tak paham? Okay, somebody try. So if I sell one more unit of the good, then what? Then the revenue will increase by how much? By the amount of the price, not by the price. Okay, so what is the value? The value is the price, and that is the slope. So what is it? It's 15. So if we sell, okay, sell one more unit, that is a per unit increase. That's one unit increase. Okay, one more unit of the good X. Okay, of the good X. Okay, what? The revenue will increase by how much? By 15 RM. Okay, so that is the interpretation of the marginal revenue. And of course, if you are looking at the average revenue, R over X is also equal to 15. Okay, then how do you describe it? It's just what? It's just quantity per unit. It's the average. So what does it mean? It means the revenue per unit. So for this good, the average revenue or the revenue per unit is equal to what? Is equal to 15. So here, just call it revenue per unit is RM 15. So in this linear situation, the average equal to the marginal. If B is equal to 0, okay? So here, if B equal to 0, then we found that the marginal revenue equal to the average revenue. Or the average, okay, the average is equal to the marginal. Correct? Okay, good. So that is the revenue. Now we look at the cost. Now cost is slightly different. Now what is the concept of cost in economics? We denote that by C, okay, which is a function of X, right? Now, what are the components of cost from, if you learn from the principles of economics, what are the components of cost? Because cost is slightly different than revenue. Okay, of course, very different. Cost is simply what? It's simply the cost that you incur by producing the good. Revenue is the income that you earn from selling. Okay, this one by the cost that you incur by producing. Okay, by producing the good. So if you look at economics, what are the components of the cost? Anybody recall?
The fixed cost and variable
Cost and variable cost.
Good. So you have the variable cost plus the fixed cost. Okay, the fixed cost here do not change with your output. Okay, here the cost that is fixed or constant don't change with output. Okay, if you sell 0 or I'm sorry, if you produce 0 or you produce 20, you produce 1,000, you still incur the same cost. So that is fixed cost. So where the cost is the cost where the what do you call it, where output is 0, you still incur that. So therefore, the fixed cost is equal to the B. Correct? So B is the fixed cost. Now the variable cost, this is the one, the cost that is changing. Okay, so that is the component of the cost that change with output, with X. So that is the variable cost. Now you are talking about linear cost function. Now remember linear cost, mx plus b. So y equal to mx plus b. So therefore, you're looking at cost, it should be mx plus b. So that is our cost. So this one is the fixed cost. So the other component will be the variable cost. So therefore, the variable cost is equal to what? Is equal to mx. So that one is the component of the cost that depend on x. This one is a constant. Okay, so that is the cost, components of the cost. Now, normally, okay, the fixed cost is normally the cost of capital. All right, cost of capital. Let's say you are producing, burger, okay, burger, street burger. That capital is your stall. Okay, so that's your capital, which consists of the kitchen, anything that is used to cook that thing. So the stall is your capital. Now this thing here doesn't change. If you buy it at what, at 1,000 ringgit, if you don't produce any burger, or you produce 1,000 burger, you still incur that cost. All right. So that is a fixed cost. Now, what about the variable cost? Variable cost, the one that changed. So if you produce more X, then the variable cost normally will increase. If you produce less X, the variable cost will be lower. So normally this is the cost of labor or raw material, So if you want to produce more burger, you have to hire more worker. So that is a variable cost. If you don't want to produce any burger, you don't hire any worker. All right? So that's variable cost and fixed cost. Okay, any question about that? All right, good. So we look at this cost. I'll give you an example. Cost can be equal to y equal to 20x plus 1,000. 1,000, okay, 1,000. Okay, so that is the fixed cost, the cost of your stall, okay, fixed cost, and 20 is the cost of 20x, the cost of the other input, which is labor. So that 20 is 20x, is the cost of your labor. Okay, now what is that 20? What is that 20? So now we are going to look at that 20. What does it mean? Now, if the 20x is the cost of labor, all right, say the cost of labor is 20x, and then x is the output. Okay, x is the output. So if I produce 10 burgers, then the cost to the labor, cost, you cannot say to the labor, is the cost of producing, okay? Cost of producing the X. So it's not, you have to relate to the labor indirectly. So because the X is not labor, X is the output, the burger. So if I sell 10 burgers, then what is my variable cost? My variable cost is
20 ringgit.
mana pula 20? Ni 10.
20.
Tu apa?
200.
200 lah, apalah 20. Bukan produce one burger, I produce 10 burger. If I produce 50 burger, berapa je cost lah? Variable cost.
1,000 lah.
1,000 lah. So what is that 20?
What?
20 itu benda dia. Belakang apa?
Cost per unit.
That 20 is, we can call it cost per unit, or more specific, variable cost per unit. Okay, so that 20 which is equal to M, okay, or here 20 for the example, but more generally just M equal to the average variable cost. In other words, the average variable cost per unit. Sometimes we just call it average cost per unit, because average cost or cost. But that is not really correct. You know, this thing here is not really correct. But in the book, they use it. Actually, it's just the average variable cost. And the average variable cost is not the average cost. But for now, okay, for now we just say, we just take it, assume as the equal. So how do you get the average variable cost? So the cost equal to the variable cost plus the fixed cost. All right, to get cost per unit, you divide by X. Okay, so here cost per unit, average cost, okay, cost per unit. So that is the average cost. So divide by X, you've got the right-hand side divided by X. So that is equal to what? That is equal to average variable cost plus the average fixed cost. So the 20 actually is the average variable cost. That means variable cost per unit. Okay, variable cost per unit. But we can also say just cost per unit. But actually, I just want to tell you, it's not exactly true. Okay, it's actually the variable cost per unit. But we can say cost per unit. If you look at the question in the book, I give you some question afterward. They will say cost per unit. So that cost per unit is actually the average variable cost, which is the value of the M. Okay, so that's how we got it. Any question? So that is cost per unit. Now, you look at the M again. We can take what? I can take the change in the cost over the change in the X. So that is what? If you have the revenue, change of revenue divided by change of X, what do you call it? We call it
As per unit. Revenue per unit.
Revenue per unit. No, tadi change in R over the change in X. What do you call it?
Marginal cost.
Revenue.
Ini marginal revenue. So the change in cost over change in X, we call it what? Marginal cost.
Marginal cost.
Marginal cost. So normally change in economics we call it marginal. Marginal apa benda pun tak kira. Okay? Marginal output, marginal cost, marginal revenue, marginal profit. As long as it is what? It is the slope. It is the change over the change. We call it marginal. Because marginal meaning what? Meaning small change. Okay, marginal. Marginally. It means there is a change, slight change. So that's marginal cost, which is equal to what? Which is equal to delta C over delta X. Equal to what? If you look at the function, cost is equal to mx plus b. All right. Now you relate back to y equal to mx plus b. Now, what was the delta y over delta x? Anybody recall? Itu kita buat. Delta y delta x apa dia? The slope. M.
Yes.
Okay. So here, therefore, what is the delta C over delta X, which is the marginal cost? It's the M. Okay, so that is the marginal cost. That's the slope. So the slope of the function, of the cost function, is the marginal cost. Okay, and it happened also to be what? To be the cost per unit. Sama, okay, because the M is a constant. So again here, if the M is 20, so therefore, if we produce, okay, one more unit of the good, one more unit of X, then what happened to the cost? Cost will increase by how much? By the M. So example here, increased by 20 RM. Okay, because my example is the value of the M is 20. So if I produce one more unit of the X, the cost will increase by 20 RM. So now remember, when you talk about cost, it's production. Okay? When you talk about revenue, it's not production anymore. It's what? It's sell. Okay? Because revenue is how much you sell. Cost is how much you produce. And they are not equal. They are not the same. Okay? You produce, but don't sell. You incur cost, no revenue. All right? Okay. So that is the cost and the revenue. Any question about this? So make sure, okay, there are a few things that we learned today. One is the marginal, the other is the average. So revenue, average revenue, marginal revenue, cost, average cost, marginal cost. All right, and the functions are all linear. So that is our revenue and the cost. So therefore, we can now get the profit. So profit is equal to the revenue minus the cost. And for break even, okay, for break even, that means we need revenue equal to 0. I'm sorry, profit equal to 0. So that is profit equal to 0, break even. Now, in terms of revenue and cost, what we need is, or in other words, you need what? I need revenue minus cost equal 0. Okay, so revenue minus cost equal to 0. That will mean revenue equal to the cost. So that is our break even. Now that condition is in terms of R and C. That condition is direct from the price, from the profit. All right. So here you relate to the revenue and the cost. So when you have R equal to C, you know that C is the cost of producing the different units of the good. Revenue is your income from selling. So when R equal to C, then what can you say about the X? The X sell, the X sold, and the X produced. What can you say that when R is equal to revenue? Okay, when I equal to revenue, that means the X equal to what? The X that I produce, okay, the X that I produce is equal to what? X produced is when you measure the cost, okay? Revenue is the income, the amount X that you sell. So the X produced is equal to what? Is equal to the X
sold.
That I sell, that's sold. So at only this point, okay, where the X produced equal to X sold. Other than that, they are not the same. Okay, all right. And any question about that? Okay, good. So now cost is mx plus b, and that b is positive because fixed cost is positive. So therefore, we go back to the graph. We can have the idea on how the cost look like. Mana dia graph ni? Jauh ke? Benda tu. Okay, now. Okay, that is the revenue. Okay, so I take out the one that I draw wrong. Ini salah tadi. Somebody say betul. Sebenarnya dia tak betul. Okay, so now, if I have the cost linear function, all right, as per our discussion, then how does the cost function look like? Anybody, you sketch your own graph on your note and then describe to me how does your function cost look like? Anybody? Sketch here. Okay, anybody who get the line? Anybody? Okay, anybody get the line? Just tell me. Cepatlah. Where is the intercept? No, intercept. Where is it? Where is the intercept? At 0 or above the 0 or where?
Above the 0.
Above the 0.
Intercept, Mr. Sini. Okay. The slope is positive. So how does the line look like? The line will macam tu. Okay. Now, that is generally y equal to mx plus b. Now, what we want, okay, what we want, you go back to the last problem, the last line where you have the problem, you want to have break even. Okay. Now, for break even, revenue equal to the cost. All right. Break even revenue equal to the cost. So break even. So there is 1 point. So we are only interested in 1 point. So for the break even, you want to have a unique solution. All right. That means there is only 1 point of intersection. So the R and the cost will intersect only at 1 point. All right. So 1 point of intersection. Okay. So if you recall, when you have a system of linear equation, we can have infinitely many solutions. You can have no solution. You can have only 1 solution. We are interested in only 1 solution. Okay. So if I go back to the graph that you just drew, is there a solution?
No.
No solution because the cost and the revenue is parallel. Okay, there will be no solution. All right. So now, how can you draw it in order to make it only 1 solution? So just go back to the graph. You draw a line, sketch your cost function, or you adjust your revenue function. Doesn't matter which one you make the adjustment, so that there will be 1 solution. As it is, we draw it now. Parallel. Tak ada solution. Kita tak nak tak ada solution. Win one solution. So, guna kaya. Cepat, macam mana kita dapat?
The cost function must intersect with the revenue function.
Yalah, I know lah. That's what we know. But how you show it on the graph? How to show on the graph so that they intersect at only 1 point? You have to adjust either the revenue or you have to adjust the cost, whatever. How can you make it 1 point of intersection? Cepatlah, anybody? Anybody who get the idea? Sketch it lah. You know, you get your graph. You sketch, just sketch how you want 1 point. Like I said, you don't adjust both, okay? Adjust one only, so that easier. If you adjust your revenue, then the cost ni maintain je lah cost kat sini. Alright? If you adjust your cost, then your revenue to be just too.
The revenue function can be more steeper.
The revenue function have to be steeper. If I maintain the cost here, all right, then I need to adjust my revenue. Revenue should intersect 0. All right, there is no problem. There is no question on that. So what you do, you need to intersect somewhere there. So your revenue must be there in order for us to get 1 point of intersection. So what is the condition here? The slope of the revenue must be what?
More steeper.
Must be more steeper lah. The slope of the revenue must be higher than the slope of the cost. That means, it makes sense. That means the price must be bigger than what? The price must be bigger than the average cost, okay, or average variable cost. So you see here, the price, the M, all right, which is the slope of the revenue. I think I'm talking about the price just now, because R equal to PX, all right? Then you need here, P must be bigger than the M. That means the price, we already say the slope of the revenue must be more steeper than the slope of the cost. So in other words, the price of the good that you sell must be bigger than the average cost or the average variable cost. Then only you will get 1 point of intersection. If you draw it like this, we never have, okay? You never will go. Now, what about if you draw it, the revenue, all right, is less steep than the cost. Okay, so you go home, you draw it. One more situation. The M is less than the P. Okay, so it's casual. So now what we have done, all right, we already show the graph, okay, of a situation where we might have where we have the revenue and the cost intersect at only 1 point. So if you look at the graph, okay, look at the book, you can see the graph on page 105. Okay, so look at the book, there is a 1.6. All right, any question? Okay, so if there is no question, then we will look at an example. So let's go to the example. Go to the example. Example number 1, number 2. You can read those. All right. You are given the marginal, so make sure you understand the marginal. Okay. Example number 2, that is on the marginal cost, and then we already talked about the marginal revenue. Now I will go through to example number 3. Okay. So I want you to read that example number 3 for just 1 or 2 minutes, because we have to determine, okay? You have to come up with the function. They are given information there, and then we need to come up with the revenue function. We need to come up with the cost function, and then you have to come up with the break-even quantity. Okay, so read that thing, and then see how you can find the revenue and the cost. Okay, 1 minute, please. Read that thing. Okay, all right. So now, the question here is, if you look at this example, you want to determine, okay, what is the amount of X for break even? So that is our objective, to find the X, the quantity of the good that you sell in order to break even. So first thing that you need to know is, of course, what is break even. So we know what is break even. Okay, break even is what? Break even means your profit. I'm sorry, profit is equal to 0. Okay, so our condition for break even, P equal to R minus C equal 0. Okay, so that is break even. So what you need is revenue. What I need is cost, because it is not given. Okay, but it is not difficult to determine. Now, how can you get your revenue function? Revenue is equal to PX. The price is a constant. So what is the price here? Example number 3. What is
$10.
NX.
$10.
$10? So 10x. All right. So you get the price, which is 10 multiplied by x. That will be our revenue. So now we got revenue. Now, you know, cost is equal to what? Cost equal to mx plus b. The b is the fixed cost. X is the what? Oh no, mx is the variable cost. So sometimes they don't give you in terms of fixed cost. Okay? They don't give you in terms of the variable cost. They can give you 2 points. Okay? So when you have 2 points, then you determine the cost function by using the 2 points. So don't worry about the fixed cost anymore. Okay? You just worry about the 2 points. Use the 2 points to get the cost function. So there will be some questions I give you later. They will give you 2 points, you know, so don't worry about the B, you just determine B, okay? From the 2 points, then you will get B. Okay, you obtain that B. So don't worry about what is the fixed cost. You worry about the fixed cost after you determine the equation of the function. So if you look at, again here, the example, the manufacturer variable costs are 2.5 per unit. And the total cost of producing 100 is 1450. So now, for the cost function, what are we given? Okay, what are we given here? What information are we given? You
2.5
remember?
per unit.
You are given what?
Variable cost per unit.
Variable cost per unit. So variable cost per unit tu apa benda? What is it?
X.
So X. X is the
M.
variable.
2.5x.
No, I'm asking you. What is the name of that average variable cost? The variable cost per unit. What is it?
M.
It's M. So you are given the slope. All right. And what are we given? What are we given? Another point, another information that we are given. What is it?
Y and X.
You are given the slope and you are given 1 point. So here, you know, this example is a good one because I say 2 points. All right. But here you are given the slope, you are given 1 point. So we can find the linear function. Sometimes they give you 2 points. Okay. So in order to, you see here, they don't give you the fixed cost. They don't give you the variable cost. They give you what? They give you the slope, which is the average variable cost or the variable cost per unit. So that's why we need to know which is which. Okay. So you are given the variable cost per unit, or I just call it average variable cost. All right. Which is equal to the marginal cost. Okay. From our discussion just now. That is the slope M, and that is equal to what? 2.5. So you're given the slope. That is one piece of information. And then you are given 1 point. Okay, so you're given 1 point, and here you are talking about Cx. Okay, C a function of x. So the point is xc. Okay, the point is xc. C is the dependent variable, x is the independent variable. So what is that point? That point is I produce 100 unit, the cost is 1450. So the point is 100, 1450. Okay, so you are given the slope, you are given the point, you can get B. Okay, so now we know this already. So I want you to find that cost function, find B. Okay, M is known, we know a point, you get B. Of course, in the book, they already do it, but don't look at the book. I want you to do it on your own. Okay, so do it now. Okay, you are given 1 point, you know the slope, get the cost function. Tak payah tengok buku tu, okay? Kalau tengok buku tu senang lah tengok buku. Do it on your own. Okay, alright. Ramai lagi tak letak gambar ni. Okay, please put your picture so that I can, at least I have an idea of my students. Otherwise, I don't know. Okay, there are so many people. Okay, this is good. Amir, you put your metric number, that's good. But I think put your picture sekali. Oh. Alright. Banyak lagi tak, ramai lagi tak letak gambar ni. Ni. Jangan letak gambar gulung ni. Saya gulung pun saya selalu tengok. Kat Gombak ni dekat je gunung. No gunung. Put yourself, okay? Alright. Okay, now come back to here. What is the value of the B that you get? Anybody?
1,200.
1,200. Everybody got that? So,
Yes.
1,200.
so I don't have to do it. All right. So I think by now everybody knows how to do it. So if you are not finished yet, balik rumah buat. Okay, balik rumah siap kan? Dalam buku ada tulis tu 1,200. Tapi show the method. All right, show the method how you do the substitution method. So now you are given the revenue, you're given the cost, and you want to find the break even. So as we know, break even is R minus C equal to 0. So we follow that. So now the profit is equal to R minus C, which I already wrote there. So I write one more time. R minus C, that is equal to, all right, equal to the price, which is what we already obtained, is 10x, okay, minus the cost. So when you have the cost that you want to subtract, there are more than one term, put the bracket, all right? So here I have 2.5x plus 1,200. So put the bracket. If you do the subtraction or addition, put the bracket first. It's okay because that is the cost. Okay, the cost is the whole thing. So now you can simplify. That is equal to what? 7.5x plus, bukan plus, should be what? Should be minus. Minus 1,200. Okay, so for break even, what is the profit? P is equal to 0. So therefore, 7.5x minus 1,200 equal 0. All right, so you get the x. Okay, so finish it up. Now, one more thing, or another approach is by looking at the revenue and the cost. So as we know, okay, there is another approach. For break even, okay, break even, you know the profit is equal to 0. And from there, R minus C. R equal to C. R minus C, but R equal to C. So we can use also this method by making use of the revenue equal to the cost. So what? So now the revenue is equal to 10x. Cost is equal to 2.5x plus 1,200. 1,200. So you can use also this one. All right. So there are two approaches. One is we do directly P equal to 0. That means you simplify you put the R and the C together and then you can simplify. Or you can do R equal to C. Then you get R equal to C, 10x minus 2.5x equal to, no, I'm sorry, 10x equal to 2.5x plus 1,200. So they are the same method, they are same thing, like eventually it will be equivalent. Okay, so here you bring everything, the x to the other side. Over here you will get that thing. So either way, you will get the same x. Okay, now if you work this out, so I want you to do both, all right? I want you to do this one. I want you also to do that thing so that we know both. But you know, as we answer more questions, sometimes we prefer this thing here. Okay, sometimes for me, I prefer this thing here because you put R minus C, we simplify right away. But you can also do that way, you know, R equal to C. There is no problem with that. If you work this out, you get X equal to what? X equal to 160. So that X 160, if I go back to the graph, okay, so here I want you to show the work, all right? So here, complete this, okay? Complete this at home. Homework, finish it up. Okay, we go back to the graph. I just want to show the solution. So if you go back to the graph here, of course, this is not exactly how it looked like for our example. But what I want to show is the equilibrium point. So you see here, that is the break even. You call it E. Even, break even. And then corresponding to that intersection point, you will see the XE. Okay, that is the break even quantity. So in this example here, it's 160. And of course, that is the break even revenue, which is equal to the break even cost. So only one point, all right, where the revenue equal to the cost. Okay, there is only one point where revenue equal to cost. That's why you call it break-even point. All right, so that is our break-even point. Our break-even point is XE equal to 160. The break-even revenue equal to break-even cost, whatever the amount that you got. Okay, then we have to substitute again. Okay, any question? Okay, now just extend it a little bit. Now for X less than the XE, X less than XE, you take 1 point. Okay, you take one value of X less than the break-even output. What can you say about the revenue and the cost? Go back to your graph. Take one X less than the break-even X. Okay, now what can you say about the revenue and the cost at that X?
Revenue minus cost less than 0, which indicate loss.
Revenue and cost. You see here, cost. You take any 1 point, doesn't matter. Let's say here X1. Or here 160, so probably here you take 100. You see here, the revenue, that's the cost. That's revenue. Revenue less than cost. Okay? Revenue less than cost. So revenue less than cost, what does it mean? It means you get what? Loss. Okay? Now you take 1 point higher than XE. Call it X2. Say here, 250. What can you say about the revenue and the cost? Cepatlah. Anybody?
Revenue more than cost.
Revenue is more than cost. Okay, revenue higher than cost. So revenue higher than cost, what does it mean?
Profit.
Profit. Okay, positive profit. So the only point where the profit is equal to the cost, your break even, there is only 1 point over here. If you move higher, positive profit, revenue bigger than cost. If you move lower, you suffer loss. Okay, so that's how if you look at the other point, okay, other points, then the break even quantity. But we don't worry too much about that thing, we just want to look at the break even quantity. But we can see it, okay, we can see it by looking at the graph. You will see that at the points, either the revenue is bigger than the graph, and I'm sorry, revenue bigger than the cost, or the revenue is less than the cost. Okay, all right. So what I would like you to do here is at X equal to 160. find RE. Okay, and then you find CE, the break-even cost. And we must have equal. Of course, like I said earlier, you know, when you do the substitution into different equation, you may have a different answer. But if you have a different answer, it will be very small, okay, insignificant difference. So you may get here maybe 40.21. If you put in the CE, maybe you got 40.19 like that. Okay. So you may have some differences, but not that large. Okay. All right. So you substitute into the R, and then you substitute into the C. We know that you should get same. Okay, same cost and same revenue. That is the break-even cost. Break-even cost and break-even revenue. So here, what you say, or what our conclusion is, to break even, we just describe. Okay, the point. To break even, you have to sell. All right, 160 units of the good. Okay, so that's it. Because what we want is to find the break-even quantity. If they want to find the break-even revenue, break-even cost, then you say what is it? Or since we already do that, you can say the break-even, okay, the break-even revenue and the cost is, okay, whatever that you get from here. So just describe it. So this is also important, okay, to describe your answer. Don't just leave your answer at X equal to 160. What is it? In application, you have to describe it. Okay, what is it? It is what? It is the break-even quantity. So that is break-even. So I give you some questions on the break-even. So you go to 1.6. Okay, this is on 1.6. I give you a number of questions for your practice. 4, 6, 13, 18, 24, 25. Okay, this is on the break-even. And then I give you a few more. Yeah, 34. Okay. The second part here, 34, 36, 47, 48. Okay, this one is on the market equilibrium. I'll give you questions sekali ya. Okay, any question on this? Okay, good. So now we move on to the last, to the other application, which is on the market equilibrium. We take a little bit more time, okay, on the break-even. Why? Because we are introducing two new concepts. One is the marginal, okay, and the other is the average. So that's why we spend a little bit more time, because that is the, we discuss the basic of marginal. Because in the future, when you do derivative, we will come back and see, the marginals are already will be used over and over again. So that's why, we should get the concept, the basic concept correct. All right. Any question? Anything? Okay. So if there is nothing, I will move on to the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask that you ask to find at X 160 find the RE and the CE. But what is the function for that thing to find?
Aduh, apalah punya soalan. Okay, macam mana nak cari revenue? Masuk ke dalam mana? You want to find the break-even revenue? Where do you substitute? Into which function do we substitute X equal to 160 into?
Revenue function.
Masuklah revenue lah. to find the cost. Masuk dalam apa?
Cost function.
Masuk dalam cost function. Okay. Siapa nama dia? Nurul. Okay, Nurul. Nurul ke siapa tadi? Boleh? You got it? Kalau you
Kan
want,
maksud saya sebab dia tak ada M
dia tak ada M,
ke.
tak, kita tak payah cari M. We don't need the M lah ada. You know, when we do this, okay, you do this, you got already the revenue function. Revenue function tu is equal to 10x. Is that right? So kita go back to the revenue function is 10x. So that is the revenue. Kita dah cari dah. Revenue 10x. Okay, dah dapat dah revenue. Okay, now what is the cost function? The cost function is M is 2.5. So the cost function which we already put, you already got 2.5 x plus 1200. So itu ini cost dia. Okay.
Oh, okay, dah faham. So, kan kena buat function baru. Okay, faham.
Tak ya. So you substitute that 160 tu either into the revenue, okay, which is 10x, or you substitute into the cost. Yani, if you substitute in the profit, kalau substitute dalam bawah ni, you will get 0 lah. Okay, you get 0 because that is the break-even point. Okay, now we know that already P is equal to 0. Now we want to find what is the revenue, what is the cost, and they must be equal. Sebab apa? Break-even. Okay, break-even means revenue equal to the cost. Okay. Boleh ya?
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good. So kita put back into the revenue, put back into the cost. Kalau saya tergelak tu, sorry dah, jangan marah. Okay? Sebab saya tergelak je. Okay, tak ada benda. Jangan tergelak tu, jangan terasa hati lah. Jangan sensitif sangat. Awak nak gelak ke saya pun tak apa. Okay. Saya tadi bukannya saja nak gelak, saya tergelak. Okay. But thank you for the question. Okay, thank you for the question. I think that's a good question. Okay, now we move on. Okay, I have 10 more minutes. Tak sempat ni. I plan to finish up today, but it's okay. You know, we go at our speed. We are not rushing. So the next thing is we are going to look at the market equilibrium. Now, market equilibrium is again is a concept of economics. So here you have market equilibrium. You are considering a market of a good. Okay, market of a good. Example, market of burger. Okay, because we are selling burgers just now. Okay, producing burger, sell burger, you got the cost of producing burger. So market of a good. Market of a burger, market of burger. So when you look at the market, there are two parts to the market. There are two sides of the market. One is the buyers. The other is the sellers. So sometimes they call it producers. So producers, sellers, we just assume they are the one that is supplying. Buyers, sometimes we call it consumers. Okay, so this is the people who produce and sell. So they call it supplier. Okay, suppliers. So supply function. And the consumers are the buyers. The buyers are the buyers. So these are the buyers. Or they are the demanders. So they have the demand function. So you have the demand function from the consumers or the buyers, supply function from the firms or from the sellers, or sometimes you call it firms. Okay, another word, firm. They call it firms. So the producers of the burger, the firms that sell the burger, or the sellers that sell the burger, they supply burgers. And we, as the consumers, the household consumers, or sometimes they call it household, correct? We buy the burgers. So we demand burgers. So that will be demand. So you have a demand function, okay, demand function, and then we have the supply function. So the interaction between the supply and the demand in the market will determine the market price and the market quantity. So we call that market equilibrium. So interaction between these two in the market, all right, that will determine the market equilibrium. Now at market equilibrium, we will determine the market price and the market quantity. Because you have the selling price, okay, and then you have the buying price, and you have the quantities. So you have the market price, market quantity. Sometimes we call it equilibrium price. Equilibrium price. That's market equilibrium. Okay, so we call it equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So there are two same thing. Market price, which is the equilibrium price. Market quantity, equilibrium quantity. Okay, and then you have the market equilibrium. So again, here you have a system of linear functions, and then you want to find the solution. So in the market equilibrium case, you have a unique solution again. Okay, unique solution to the system. So here you have a system of linear functions. Okay, one is the demand function, the other is the supply function. And then the market equilibrium is the solution to the system, the intersection of the two functions. You call it market equilibrium. So I think you encounter already the demand and the supply. So you look at the market. Normally when you have the market, okay, before that, we want to get the demand function. Okay, demand function. Anybody, I think you know already from the principles of micro, how does the demand function look like? If I draw, okay, the demand function X to P. Demand function macam mana bentuk?
Upward sloping.
Upward slope.
Upward sloping. Siapa yang mengajar demand function upward sloping? Demand function
Downward sloping.
Downwards.
Downward sloping. Demand function, you know, downward sloping. Downward function P as a function of X. All right? You draw P vertical axis. Or sometimes, of course, you know, you can also write G, function of X, function of P. So here it doesn't matter. Sometimes you use P, sometimes you use X. All right? But when you draw it as we have here, we call it P function of X. Okay, in the book they use Q. So you can use Q pun boleh, X pun boleh. All right, the book use Q. And then for the break even, they use X. No, Q. So here, P demand function of X, because you, you know, you draw the function P vertical axis. So P function of X. But sometimes X function of P pun boleh juga. Okay, so interchangeable. And this is what? This is downward sloping. In other words, the M is less than 0. So the demand function, you got P equal to negative MX. I put the negative sign, okay, right away, so that we know it's a negative slope. Or we can use MX or MQ plus B. And then I say M is negative. So how do I do it? It's up to me. So if I say this, MX plus B, okay, and then I put here M less than 0, okay, B bigger than 0. So the slope or the demand function will look like this. Downward sloping, intercept here is positive. Dia macam ni ya. Gitu gaya. So that is the demand function. Okay, demand function means downward sloping. I am willing to buy more if the price is more, or as the quantity increases. So here we can say, as X increases, the price that we are willing to pay, okay, price willing to pay will also decrease. Just like durian, if there are so much durian, okay, in the market, then we are willing to pay less. No, we are willing to pay less. If there are smaller amount of durian, then people are willing to pay more. Okay, so logic, the demand function. Now, on the other hand, the supply function is what? Again, here's the supply for the firms or for the sellers. You have supply P as also a function of X. Or sometimes we can have X a function of H. Okay. Tadi kita pakai apa? F dengan G kan? F dengan G. F, G, H. Nah, pakai K lah. KP. Alright. So here boleh juga. Okay. But we consistent with the graph. We call it PHX. And the supply function, if you recall, how does it look like?
Upward slope.
Upward sloping. So here you have the upward sloping. That means the slope is bigger than 0. All right. Now B, sometimes B we don't worry. Okay, sometimes B can be negative, sometimes B can be positive. All right. This B here, don't worry too much. So the supply function, you have upward sloping. So therefore, BP equal to MX plus B. Or, okay, since we use already for the demand function M plus B, so kita guna benda lain lah. Call it M1, B1. Okay, for the supply function. So here I got the supply. And then earlier, I have the demand function. Okay, so if I do it like this, then the supply function will be. So there will be unique solution. Why? Because the slope are not equal. One is positive, one is negative. So there will be one equilibrium over there. We call it market equilibrium. And that will correspond to XE. And that is the equilibrium price, call it PE. Itu dia. Okay. So when the demand intersect the supply, you will have the market equilibrium. So for equilibrium, all right, for equilibrium, what do I need is the demand equal supply. So that is the condition. So make sure we know that, okay? The demand equal to supply, you have market equilibrium. In other words, the system of the two functions, for market equilibrium, you have them intersect. And that intersection point is where the demand equal to the supply. And then you get the demand function, okay? You got the supply function. We're going to solve. And for the X, only XE, the market price, the quantity, the equilibrium quantity, that means the market quantity, and then the equilibrium price or the market price. So that is what you want to find. Okay, for market equilibrium, you want to find the equilibrium price, and then I want to find also the equilibrium quantity. Okay, anything? So I cannot finish this. I hope we can continue. Now on Wednesday, I wish I can take only about 15 minutes, okay, to finish up this thing here. And then I will continue with our inequalities. So next class, we will move on to the next chapter, inequalities. And after this, okay, after this we can go faster because the basic is already covered. Okay, the basic covered because substitution method we already know. We already have idea concept of the marginal, concept of the average. So after this, we can go faster. The reason linear, it take a little bit longer because why? Because of the introduction of the basic concept. All right, like drawing graph, independent variable, dependent variable, things like that. So we build from here. So as we move on, all the things, the basic we already knew. So we can go faster. We don't have to go back and discuss all those things. All right. So linear function is important. Why? Because it built the concept. Okay, it built the basic concept, and the basic concept is going to be. We will come back, and meet and see all this basic concept in a different way, in a different perspective. But we have to relate back to the basic. So I hope I can finish up this chapter Wednesday, and then continue with the inequalities. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I gave you some questions just now. Okay, practice those questions. I will ask one or two questions from not just this one, all right? From the questions that I asked you earlier, maybe including this one, I'll give you homework number one. All right, homework number one will be I give you on Wednesday. Maybe I give you just one or two questions for you to submit to me as homework number one. All right, and the homework number one or the homework that we do, I will ask you to submit into the classroom. So lepas ni, I will do the classroom. Okay, I will have the classroom, and for classroom, that will go by section. Okay, every section will have one classroom. So that's why I need your group member to be in the same section, because the classroom will be separated by your section. Okay, all right. Anything else? Any question? Anything before we go? Okay. Oh, hari ni ramai tak ada ni. Hari Isnin tak ada. Mana pergi semua? Okay, ini baru minggu ketiga dah tunjuk perangai tak datang kelas.
Wah, sini ni.
Ramai tu. You have 70. 70 something, 78. Our class, I think, should be, unless people drop. But this class have like 90 people. So that is a lot of number that is absent. Monday, so far, our absent rate is quite high. About 10 people. Average 10 people per class missing. For that is quite high. But of course, I cannot force you to come. Okay, if you want to come, you come. If you don't want to come, what can I do? Okay, this is online class. But I like I said, please treat attendance as something important. If you miss a lot of classes, not so good. All right, don't reduce your chances to get A. Okay, don't reduce the chances to get A or to get B plus or to pass. Okay, so I will see you again on Wednesday. Have a nice practice of questions. All right, so practice the questions. Practice. Don't, one thing about mathematics, you can do mathematics anywhere you like. You are traveling, you can do mathematics. You are nearly sleeping, boleh buat lagi satu soalan. You want to eat, you can do another question. You are watching TV, you can do it. This problem of mathematics, like my teacher said, you can do anywhere. Okay, because you don't have to read. Okay, you don't have to read, just do it. Okay, so I'll see you again. Have a nice what do you call it? Have a nice day. Okay, take care, and I'll see you again on Wednesday. Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, just to confirm, homework one you will give at Wednesday, right?
Nanti saya bagilah soalan.
Okay.
Okay, bukan kena submit semua. Mampuslah saya nak jawab, nak grade. Okay. I will ask you to give only 1 or 2. Okay.
Alright.
Sebab ramai anak negeri ni banyak. Alright. So nanti saya bagilah on Wednesday. I'll give you the question how many, and then I'll give you also the submission date, the deadline. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Alright. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Alright. Okay. I'll see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Yeah. You too. Have a nice day.
Terima kasih, sir.
Thank you.